The ranger looked at the filthy man standing in his office and sighed. "You're telling me you own the Kellerman property?" The old man nodded once. His coat was held together with duct tape. His boots had no laces. He smelled like wet cardboard and motor oil. The ranger slid the inheritance papers back across the desk. "Look, I don't know what you're planning to do up there, but that cabin's been abandoned for 15 years. No power, no water, and it's right in the middle of prime hunting land." The old man said nothing. "You understand what I'm saying? October through January, that forest is packed. Hunters pay good money for those permits. They're not going to be happy about some squatter." "I'm not squatting." His voice was quiet, flat. The ranger leaned back in his chair. "Fine, it's yours, but don't come crying to me when someone mistakes you for a bear." The old man folded the papers into his jacket and walked out. His name was Vincent Hayes. He was 68 years old, and he had not slept indoors in 7 years. The cabin sat 3 miles off the main trail. Vincent reached it just before dark. The windows were broken. The door hung crooked on its hinges. Inside, the floor was covered in leaves and animal droppings. He set his bag down in the corner. He did not unpack. He sat on the floor with his back against the wall and watched the light fade through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a gunshot echoed. Then another. Vincent closed his eyes. The first hunter arrived 2 days later. Vincent was outside splitting wood when he heard the truck. It came up the old logging road, engine growling. The driver parked 20 yards from the cabin and stepped out. He was younger, maybe 40, expensive jacket, new rifle slung over his shoulder. He saw Vincent and stopped. "This is private land," Vincent said. The man laughed. "Yeah, my land. I've been hunting this area for 10 years. "Not anymore." The hunter's smile disappeared. "Listen, old man, I don't know who you are, but this is Kellerman property. Has been since the 70s. Vincent wiped his hands on his pants. "William Kellerman was my uncle. He died. I inherited it." The hunter stared at him. "You're joking." Vincent turned back to the woodpile. The hunter took a step forward. "You can't just show up and kick people out. We have permits, we pay fees." "Not to me. This is bullshit." Vincent split another log. The hunter stood there for a long moment, breathing hard. Then he spat into the dirt and got back in his truck. The engine roared. He spun the tires as he left. Vincent kept chopping. By the end of the week, word had spread. Trucks started showing up at all hours. Some drivers yelled from the road. Others walked right up to the cabin and knocked. Vincent did not answer. He reinforced the door. He covered the broken windows with plastic sheeting. He built a fire pit outside and cooked in the open air. He did not leave. One afternoon, 3 men came together. They parked their trucks in a line and walked up to the porch. The oldest one knocked. "We just want to talk." Vincent opened the door halfway. The man smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Look, we get it. You inherited the place. That's fine. But this land has always been open to hunters. It's tradition." Vincent said nothing. "We're reasonable people. We're willing to work something out. You let us hunt, we'll make sure you're taken care of, fix your roof, bring you supplies." "I don't need supplies." The man's smile faded. "You're making a mistake." Vincent started to close the door. One of the other men stepped forward. "You think you can just hide in there?" Vincent stopped. He looked at the man. The man was big, broad shoulders, thick neck. He held his rifle loose in one hand. "You don't belong here," the man said. Vincent's voice did not change. "Leave." The big man laughed. "Or what?" Vincent stared at him. The air between them went still. The older man put a hand on the big man's shoulder. "Come on, let's go." The big man did not move. I said, "Let's go." Finally, the big man stepped back. They walked to their trucks. But before they drove off, the big man turned and looked at the cabin. He smiled. That night, Vincent did not sleep. He sat in the dark with his back to the wall. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. He listened. At 2 in the morning, he heard the engines. 2 trucks, maybe 3. They came up the road with their lights off. Vincent stood and moved to the window. He watched the shapes step out of the trucks, 4 men, maybe 5. They were carrying something. One of them laughed. Vincent went to the door and opened it. He stepped onto the porch. The men stopped. "Go home," Vincent said. One of them raised a spotlight and shined it in his face. "We're just here to help, old man. Thought you might need some heat." Another man held up a gas can. Vincent did not move. "Last chance," he said. The man with the spotlight laughed. "Or what, you gonna call the cops? There's no service out here." Vincent stepped off the porch. The men went quiet. He walked toward them slowly. The man with the gas can shifted his weight. "Stay back." Vincent kept walking. "I'm warning you." Vincent stopped 6 feet away. He looked at each of them. His voice was calm. "You don't want to do this." The man with the spotlight swung the beam toward the others. "He's bluffing." But no one moved. Vincent tilted his head slightly. "You came here to scare me, burn me out, maybe hurt me." The men glanced at each other. "But you're not ready for what happens next." The big man from earlier stepped forward. "You talk a lot for someone who's outnumbered." Vincent's eyes locked onto his. "I've been outnumbered before." The wind picked up. The spotlight flickered. And in that moment, something changed. The big man saw it. The way Vincent stood, the way his hands stayed loose at his sides, the way his breathing never quickened. He had seen that look before. In his father's eyes, after the old man came back from Desert Storm and never talked about it. The big man took a step back. "Let's get out of here." "What?" the man with the gas can said. "I said let's go." "Are you serious?" The big man walked to his truck without answering. The others hesitated. Then one by one they followed. The engine started. The trucks turned around and disappeared down the road. Vincent stood there until the sound faded completely. Then he went back inside. The next morning, the ranger came. He pulled up in his green Forest Service truck and got out slowly. Vincent was sitting on the porch. The ranger walked up and stopped at the bottom of the steps. "I heard there was trouble." Vincent said nothing. The ranger looked around. "Hunters are saying you threatened them." "I told them to leave." "They're saying you're dangerous." Vincent met his eyes. "Am I under arrest?" The ranger sighed. "No." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to Vincent. "This came in this morning from the VA." Vincent unfolded it. It was a service record request confirmation. The ranger scratched the back of his neck. "I ran your name. I didn't believe them when they said you owned the place, so I checked." He paused. "You were Army, Special Forces, 2 tour in Vietnam, another in Panama, instructor at Fort Bragg for 8 years. Vincent folded the paper and set it on the step beside him. The ranger looked uncomfortable. "I also saw the discharge notes. Medical separation, PTSD, traumatic brain injury." He cleared his throat. "Look, I'm not here to cause problems, but people are scared, and when people get scared, they do stupid things." Vincent stared at the trees. "I just want to be left alone." The ranger nodded. I know. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, you have every right to be here. This is your land, but those hunters, they're not going to stop, not unless someone makes them. He got back in his truck. Before he drove off, he looked at Vincent one more time. Be careful. 2 weeks passed. No one came. Vincent repaired the roof. He patched the walls. He cleared the brush around the cabin and dug a proper fire pit. He did not go into town. He ate what he could forage, berries, wild onions. He set snares for rabbits. The woods were quiet. And for the first time in years, Vincent slept through the night. Then the snow came. It started in early November. Soft at first, just a dusting. But within a week, the ground was covered. The hunters came back. Not to threaten. To hunt. Vincent heard the gunshots in the distance, saw the orange vests moving through the trees. They stayed away from the cabin. But they were close. One morning, Vincent found boot prints in the snow near his property line. He followed them for half a mile. They led to a tree stand. Someone had built it on his land. Vincent climbed up and dismantled it. He left the pieces stacked neatly at the base of the tree. The next day, a truck pulled up. It was the big man. He got out slowly. His hands were empty. Vincent stepped onto the porch. The big man stopped at the edge of the clearing. I'm not here to start anything. Vincent waited. The man shifted his weight. I wanted to apologize. Vincent said nothing. I was out of line, we all were. He looked down at his boots. My dad was a Marine. He died a few years back. When I saw you that night, the way you stood, it reminded me of him. He swallowed. I should have known better. Vincent studied him. The man took a breath. Some of the guys are still pissed. They think you're taking something from them, but I told them to leave you alone. And most of them will listen. Most. The man hesitated. There's one guy, Carl Pitts. He's been hunting this land longer than anyone. He's not going to let this go. Vincent's jaw tightened. That's his problem. The man nodded slowly. Yeah, I just thought you should know. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, thank you for your service. Vincent did not respond. The man got in his truck and drove away. Carl Pitts came 3 days later. He did not drive up to the cabin. He parked a mile down the road and walked in. Vincent saw him coming. He was older than the others, maybe 70. He moved slow but steady. He carried a rifle. Vincent stepped off the porch and waited. Carl stopped 30 feet away. This used to be good land, Carl said. Vincent said nothing. I've been hunting here since 1975. Brought my son here, taught him how to track, how to shoot. He spat into the snow. Now you show up and ruin it. It's my land. Carl's face hardened. Your land. Your uncle didn't do a damn thing with it for 50 years. He let us hunt, let us use it, and now you come in and act like you own the place. I do own it. Carl raised the rifle. Not aiming, just holding it across his chest. You think that piece of paper makes you special. Vincent's voice stayed calm. Put the gun down. Or what? Vincent took a step forward. Carl's finger moved toward the trigger. I said stay back. Vincent stopped. His eyes never left Carl's. You're not going to shoot me. You don't know that. Yes, I do. The wind blew snow between them. Carl's hand shook. You don't belong here. Neither do you. Carl's face twisted. He raised the rifle to his shoulder. Vincent did not move. Shoot me or leave. Carl's breath came fast. His hands trembled. Vincent waited. 10 seconds passed. 20. Carl lowered the rifle. His shoulders sagged. Damn it. He turned and walked back into the trees. Vincent watched until he disappeared. Then he went inside. The ranger came back the next morning. This time he was not alone. A sheriff's deputy stood beside him. Vincent opened the door before they knocked. The ranger looked tired. Carl Pitts filed a complaint, says you threatened him with a weapon. Vincent shook his head. I don't own a weapon. The deputy stepped forward. Mind if we take a look inside? Vincent moved aside. They searched the cabin. It took less than 2 minutes. There was nothing there, a sleeping bag, a cook pot, a folding knife smaller than the deputy's hand. The deputy came back out and shook his head at the ranger. The ranger sighed. Carl also says you're trespassing on hunting grounds. This is my land. I know, I told him that. The deputy crossed his arms. Look, Mr. Hayes, I don't know what happened out here, but Carl Pitts has been hunting this area for 40 years. People know him, respect him. Vincent said nothing. If you two can't find a way to work this out, someone's going to get hurt. I'm not the one pointing guns at people. The deputy's eyes narrowed. He says you came at him. He's lying. The ranger held up a hand. Okay, everyone calm down. He looked at Vincent. Is there any way you'd be willing to let them hunt here, just during season? It's only a few months. No. Why not? Vincent's voice stayed flat. Because it's mine. The deputy shook his head. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I didn't ask for easy. The ranger rubbed his face. All right, look, legally you're in the right. This is your property. You can refuse access to anyone you want. He paused. But Carl's not going to let this go, and neither are his friends. Vincent met his eyes. Then they'll have to learn. The ranger and the deputy exchanged a look. They left without another word. That night, Vincent heard the trucks again. More than before. He counted 5. Maybe 6. They parked at the end of the road, and the men walked in on foot. Vincent watched from the window. They were not trying to hide. They came in a group, flashlights swinging, voices loud. Vincent stepped onto the porch. The men stopped at the edge of the clearing. Carl was in front. We're not leaving, Carl said. Vincent said nothing. This land belongs to everyone, not just you. That's not how property works. One of the other men stepped forward. You can't stop all of us. Vincent looked at him. I don't need to stop you. I just need to make it not worth it. Carl laughed. What are you going to do? Call the cops? They already came, they already left. Vincent stepped off the porch. The men shifted. Carl raised a hand. Stay where you are. Vincent kept walking. Slow. Steady. I said stop. Vincent stopped 10 feet away. He looked at Carl. Then at the men behind him. Most of them were holding rifles, or shotguns, or both. Vincent's hand stayed at his sides. You think those make you dangerous? Carl's jaw clenched. I know how to use this. So do I. The men glanced at each other. Vincent's voice dropped. I know what it sounds like when a bullet tears through a man's chest. I know what it smells like when a body burns. I know what it feels like to dig a hole in the mud and pull pieces of your friends out of it. No one spoke. You came here with guns because you think I'm afraid of them. He took a step closer. But I've seen what guns do. I've done what guns do. Carl's hands tightened on his rifle. And I'm telling you right now, if you point that thing at me, you better be ready to use it, because I won't stop, I won't run, I won't beg. The wind moved through the trees. Vincent's voice went quiet. I'll just make sure you regret it. The silence stretched. One of the younger men at the back turned and walked away. Then another. Carl looked over his shoulder. Where are you going? They did not answer. Carl turned back to Vincent. His face was red. This isn't over. Vincent said nothing. Carl stared at him for a long moment. Then he lowered the rifle and walked back toward the trucks. The others followed. Vincent stood there until the sound of the engines faded. Then he went back inside. 3 days later, the ranger returned. He came alone. Vincent was outside splitting wood. The ranger got out of his truck and leaned against the hood. I heard what happened. Vincent set down the axe. Carl said you threatened to kill him. I didn't threaten anything. That's not what he says. Vincent wiped his hands on his pants. The ranger sighed. Look, I'm not here to arrest you. I just need to know what's going on. Vincent stared at the ground. They came onto my land, with guns, in the middle of the night. And you talked them down. I told them to leave. The ranger nodded slowly. Carl also says you're unstable, that you're living out here without heat or electricity, that you're a danger to yourself. Vincent looked up. I'm fine. Are you? Vincent's jaw tightened. I don't need a babysitter. The ranger held up his hands. I'm not trying to be one, but if Carl pushes this, they could force a psych eval. They could take the land. Vincent's eyes went cold. Let them try. The ranger studied him. You really don't care, do you? Vincent picked up the axe. I care about being left alone. The ranger watched him split another log. Then he pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. I brought you something. He set it on the woodpile. Vincent glanced at it. What is it? Permit for permanent residence. It exempts the land from public hunting access during your lifetime. Vincent frowned. I already own it. Yeah, but this makes it official with the county. No more complaints, no more arguments. Vincent picked up the paper and read it. The ranger cleared his throat. I also made some calls, got in touch with the VA. They're sending someone out next week to check on you, not because you're unstable, just to make sure you're getting the benefits you're owed. Vincent looked at him. The ranger shifted his weight. I did some more digging into your record. You were decorated, Silver Star, Bronze Star with V device, Purple Heart. Vincent folded the paper. That was a long time ago. Doesn't make it less true. Vincent said nothing. The ranger looked around. You know, my father was a Marine. He served in Korea, came back and never talked about it, not once. He paused. I didn't understand it when I was a kid, thought he was just being stubborn. He met Vincent's eyes. But I get it now. Vincent set the paper on the porch. The ranger nodded. Anyway, the permit's yours if you want it, and if you need anything, you let me know. He got back in his truck. Before he drove off, he rolled down the window. For what it's worth, I think you've earned the right to some peace. Vincent watched him leave. Then he went back to splitting wood. Winter deepened. The snow came heavy. The hunters stopped coming. The woods went silent. Vincent finished the repairs on the cabin. He insulated the walls with old newspapers and cardboard. He built a better stove from scrap metal. He cut enough firewood to last through spring. He did not go into town. The VA sent a caseworker in late December. She was younger, maybe 30. She drove a small sedan that got stuck twice on the way up. Vincent helped her dig it out. She asked him questions. How was he eating? How was he sleeping? Did he feel safe? Vincent answered. She filled out forms. Before she left, she told him he qualified for disability benefits, that a check would be deposited monthly, that he could use it however he wanted. Vincent thanked her. She asked if he needed anything else. He said no. She looked around at the cabin, at the cleared land, at the stacked firewood. You did all this yourself? Vincent nodded. She smiled. That's impressive. Vincent did not respond. She got in her car and left. The first check arrived in January. Vincent walked into town to cash it. The bank teller stared at the amount. You sure you want all of this in cash? Vincent nodded. She counted it out slowly. Vincent folded the bills into his jacket and walked to the hardware store. He bought nails, screws, a new axe, a handsaw, a roll of chicken wire. The man behind the counter looked at him. You building something? Fixing something? The man nodded. Vincent carried everything back to the cabin. It took him 4 hours. In February, the snow began to melt. The hunters started coming back. But they stayed on the public trails. No one came up the logging road. No one knocked on the door. Vincent saw them sometimes, moving through the trees in the distance. He did not wave. They did not approach. In March, the ranger stopped by. He brought coffee. They sat on the porch and drank it in silence. After a while, the ranger spoke. Carl Pitts moved to Idaho, sold his house last month. Vincent said nothing. Some of the other hunters asked if they could lease access to your land, offered to pay. Vincent shook his head. The ranger nodded. I figured. They finished their coffee. The ranger stood. You doing all right out here? Vincent looked at the trees. Yeah. The ranger smiled. Good. He got in his truck and left. Spring came. The snow melted. The forest turned green. Vincent planted a small garden behind the cabin. Tomatoes, beans, squash. He built a fence around it to keep the deer out. He fixed the broken windows. He replaced the door. The cabin stopped looking abandoned. It started looking like a home. One morning in late April, Vincent heard footsteps on the trail. He looked up from the garden. A young man was walking toward the cabin. He was thin, maybe 25. He wore a military jacket with a ranger tab on the shoulder. He stopped at the edge of the clearing. Mr. Hayes. Vincent stood. Yeah. The young man hesitated. My name's Eric Vaughn. I was in the 75th, got out 6 months ago. Vincent waited. Eric shifted his weight. I heard about you, about what happened with the hunters. Vincent said nothing. Eric looked down. I've been sleeping in my car, can't hold a job, can't seem to figure things out. His voice cracked. I didn't know where else to go. Vincent stared at him. Eric wiped his eyes. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. You hungry? Eric looked up. Vincent gestured toward the cabin. I've got stew, it's not much. Eric's throat worked. I don't want to impose. You're not. Vincent walked to the door. Eric followed. They ate in silence. When they finished, Eric washed the bowls. Vincent watched him. You got somewhere to be. Eric shook his head. No, sir. Vincent nodded. There's work to do here, if you want to stay a few days. Eric looked at him. Are you serious? I don't say things I don't mean. Eric's eyes filled. Thank you. Vincent stood and walked outside. Eric followed. They worked until sunset. Clearing brush. Stacking wood. Not talking. Just working. When the light faded, they sat by the fire. Vincent handed Eric a blanket. You can sleep inside, there's space. Eric nodded. They sat there, watching the flames, listening to the wind. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt alone. The woods stayed quiet. The hunters learned to walk the other trails. And in a small cabin, deep in the forest, two men who had given everything found something they thought was gone. Peace. Not from speeches, not from medals, just from the simple fact that someone understood. And that was enough.